So I would like to get started on our backs this morning. And you may want to block a strap and 2 fascia balls. None of those are absolutely required, but if you have them nearby, they may be something you choose to use in the practice. So, as you lie back, just notice if there's anything you would like supporting you, like your head, support the head. And we're going to begin with our knees bent. Take your feet out a little wider than your hips. Let the knees come together. Begin with placing your palms on your belly. The upper arms, elbows are on the floor. And just relax into the earth for a moment. So allowing our bodies to become heavy. And observe the body breathing. Just feeling your breath move in and out. Notice the areas of the body that are involved with breathing. Let's check in with who's arrived on the mat today. And we'll start with our physical body. So just do a little scan from the crown of your head. It's going to move down into the neck, the shoulders. Notice if there's anything going on in the arms, like the elbows or wrists. Check in with the upper back, mid back, and low back, so the full length of your spine. Notice the hips. Notice your knees and ankles. And then just taking in the whole body, the big picture, just kind of looking at it or feeling into the whole body. So we start to notice the energy body. So as we allow the breath to flow at its own pace or its own rhythm, we can just take note of the subtle energy just beneath the skin. If the chakras are something that you work with, you may notice one of your chakras feeling or sensing something going on there. And as we become a little more still, more present to the moment, we may notice emotions arising. We may notice thoughts that keep reoccurring. And notice if these thoughts take you away from this present moment, from this practice. And we can use our breath as the anchor to come back to this moment. And in this stillness, in this moment-to-moment awareness, we can tune into our intuition, that inner knowing or that small, still voice within us, guiding us every day, every moment, every choice. So may you listen to that guidance during this practice and all the choices that you make. other than breathing. Everything is a choice. We're going to slowly begin to deepen our breath and guiding it into the belly. So that as you take your inhale with your palms resting on your belly, you can feel that the belly move with the breath in. It rises or expands. And the exhale, we gently allow the belly to fall back towards the spine. So just belly breathing, inhaling, belly expands. And exhale, it contracts. Begin to take your breath deeper, filling up to about 85% of capacity. So it's deeper than you would normally take without thinking about it. It's comfortable, there's no stress or strain in the breath. We're going to invite the breath to move up through the torso so that as you begin the inhale, the belly starts to rise. We allow the rib cage to expand when the diaphragm fills up. And then the completion of that inhale rests in the heart or the chest. And then pause, just hold the breath for a moment. Be in that fullness, allow it to penetrate every cell, oxygenating the body. And on the exhale, just let the breath slowly out and not worry about the direction of it. So just letting the breath out, and we'll begin that again. So inhaling from to the belly, chest or the ribs, on up to the chest, and hold for a moment at the top of the inhale. Flood the body with the oxygen. And slowly let the breath out. Let's stay with this for a moment on your own, just inhaling belly to heart. Hold at the top of the inhale, maybe 4 to 5 seconds, and then release the breath out. At the completion of the next exhale, let go of shaping of the breath. And then just notice or feel the echo of that breath work. And we're going to reverse this so that on the inhale, you begin in the chest. So you feel the chest expand, rib cage expand out, and the breath fills up into the belly. Once again, pause in that fullness. And then the exhale, just slowly let it all out. So again, we're only working with the breath in one direction. Inhaling into the heart, ribs and belly. Pause on the inhale, 4 to 5 seconds. And then slowly let the breath out. So once again on your own, just for a few moments here. At the completion of your next exhale, just let any shaping of the breath go. And again, just feel the echo of that breath. From here, let's find a nice even flow to our breath, a nice smooth even flow. We're going to stay with that 85% of capacity. So just inhaling to about that 85% and slowly exhale. As smooth as you can, the breath transitions from the inhale to the exhale and the exhale to the inhale. If you're using a blanket underneath your head, you can leave it there for now. We're going to bring our soles, or the inner edges of the feet and the knees all the way together. And then what we'll do is just come into our sacral rock. At this point, if you'd like to move the hands, feel free to open the arms out away from you a little bit if you want to. And we're going to just create a nice small movement across the sacrum. We're going to begin with some gentle warm-ups for the low back today. And then I'd like to move into spinal awareness, or a lengthening of our spine, and what that means in certain poses. We start with this movement rather small, so the bottoms of your feet stay planted in the floor, so we're not rolling the edges off at all. Keep the mound of the big toes anchored in your mat. If you want to begin creating a bit of a larger movement, this does take us into a twist, and we're just beginning to warm up, so I would encourage you to keep it still rather small, but you can go a little farther side to side and feel the outer edges of the feet come off the floor a bit. And so imagine the pelvic bowl, and we're just rocking across the top of the pelvic bowl from one side to the other. Right across the sacrum and to the other side. And let's bring your knees back to center. Take your feet about hip width apart. And we're going to create the same movement, again, just across the top of the pelvis, not dropping into a twist, just side to side with the knees. And then we'll bring the knees back to center here. And in this position, we're not changing the feet at all. We'll come into our pelvic tilts. So as we tuck the tailbone under, we're posteriorly tipping the pelvis, and the low back, you feel the low back anchor into your mat. Reverse that into an anterior tip of the pelvis and create a little bit of a lumbar curve. So now you have space between your low back and the floor. And so just tucking under and reverse that. Posterior, anterior tip of the pelvis. And rock that to a neutral position, so it's right in the middle of the posterior anterior tilt. which means we do have a gentle curve in our lumbar spine, or should have in a healthy lumbar spine. And then we'll come into our hip hikers or sliders. So just sliding or hiking the hip up to one shoulder than the other. Tailbone, buttocks stay on your mat. And we're just sliding up here. Meant to be a small, mindful movement. Now notice your breath. Notice the flow of your breath. Stay with that anchor point. And then from here, we can switch this and take hip up to the ceiling and back down. And then reverse that, the other hip. So hip hikers, pointing the right hip up to the ceiling and back down, and the left hip. And then we can alternate between these two. Do a few hip hikers, and then a few hip pointers. And then we'll bring that back to center. And let's draw the knees into the chest. So just give yourself a little hug. Feel a nice stretch in the low back. If you can hug the knees all the way in, go ahead. If you need to minimize this a bit, of course, please do so. We'll come into our Apanasana. Inhale, the knees move arm lengths away. Exhale, pull them in close. Inhale, arm lengths away, and exhale, hug them in. And we'll take this into knee circles. So circling the knees around in one direction. And then switch and circle the other way. And then from here, maybe take the knees, circle them wide and around so we get a little bit into the inner thigh and the groin. And let's do one more little warm up here on our back. Place the left foot on the floor. Interlace your hands behind the right thigh. Extend that foot to the ceiling. And then let's move in and out of this 3 times. Your exhale, we release the heel towards the buttocks. And then inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend the knee, heel toward the buttocks. And inhale, straighten. Press the heel to the ceiling. And we'll hold here on this after that 3rd round. And just feel a gentle stretch through the back of the thigh. So we want to check in with our hamstrings here this morning. Just kind of notice how they're feeling today. Really taking care of those throughout the practice. Right? So the tighter our hamstrings are, the more challenging it can be to maintain a lengthened spine. So we're going to give ourselves permission, for those of you who have tighter hamstrings, you're going to give yourself permission to bend the knees, however generously you need to, in order to really maintain or create a long spine. Let's take 3 more breaths here. And then we'll switch sides. Place the right foot in the floor. Interlace your hands behind your left thigh. And just 3 rounds. Extend. We inhale. Bend. We exhale. 2 more. In the third extension, come in and hold. Flex the foot. Press the heel to the ceiling. Check out this hamstring. See how it feels. Notice if you already need to have a knee bent. We're keeping also, and I didn't mention this on the first side, but we're keeping the pelvis as neutral as you can. So we're not pressing into the right foot, flattening the low back into the floor so we can pull our leg closer. We want to find that neutral pelvis, which really creates that extension and that length in the hamstring where it attaches into the glutes. Take 3 more breaths on this side. And then release that foot to the floor. Let's just take a nice full body stretch, extend the feet out, lengthen the legs out along the floor, reach the arms overhead, reach through fingertips and toes. Take a nice deep breath in, and then give yourself a great big hug. Wrap the arms around the legs if you can. Maybe the head comes off the floor if that feels safe to your neck, and just kind of rolling side to side a little bit. And then we're going to roll to one side and find our way to hands and knees. We'll come back to our blankets possibly later, so we'll just kind of move those off to the side for now. Mindfully placing the entire palm into the floor, the full length of all 10 fingers. Fingers spread, so we create a really nice platform, right, in our hands to anchor into the earth. And then from here, exhaling, round the spine. So we're going to start to move through the full length of the spine here. Inhale, lift the head, lift the tail. Little cat-cow. Exhaling, draw under, navel to spine. Tuck the head and release, or tuck the tailbone, release the head. And then reverse that. Keep that engagement of the core as you come into a gentle back bend, softening the heart towards the earth. And so just kind of check in with your spine today. Notice if there's any tender points, areas that need a little extra attention. And then let's go ahead and kind of move creatively here. Maybe circle the hips around, big or small, one direction several times. And keep that navel to spine. Support your low back. So it's really important. And then reverse, circle the other way. Bring all that to center. Move into Chakravarkasana, exhaling back, sit bones to your heels. And inhaling back to hands and knees. Exhale, release into a child's pose or Balasana. Inhale to tabletop or all fours. Navel to spine. Breath at an 85% of capacity. And smoothly transitioning from the inhale to the exhale. The exhale into the inhale. go ahead and remain at hands and knees the next time you come up. And I'll do a little back body warm up or strengthener. So our alternate arm and leg lift works asymmetrically across the spine. We're going to keep the navel to the spine the whole time. Right arm, shoulder height, left leg lifts, hip height, back down to the floor, all fours. Inhale, left arm, right leg, keep the core engaged, lengthening the spine, reaching through fingers and toes, and exhale back to all fours. So just alternate here on your own with your breath. We inhale, creates the lift, and the exhale brings us back to all fours. One more time each side. And when you've gone equally side to side, draw back into a child's pose. And let's pause on this one for a moment. Forehead to the floor. If you have a fascia ball, you're welcome to rest it there. Or maybe rest it on your hands, one hand on top of the other. It's up to you. Take some deep breaths into the back body. And then go ahead and come on up. We're actually going to come to standing. We're going to find down dog and a little bit later into the practice. So let's go ahead and find our way to a standing position. We want to have a block nearby if you choose to use one this morning. And come on up to standing. So I'm going to shift my camera so I can be seen. My head can be seen. So from standing, we want to find our feet. I'm going to stand sideways to the camera. We're going to find our feet parallel and hip width apart. Okay. So kind of take a look down at your feet and notice your feet. You know, we don't really pay attention to them very often, and yet they do so much for us. And we want to notice where do we tend to distribute our weight. So are you one that tends to be forward, and a lot of the weight is on the ball of the foot? Do you tend to be back on your heels a bit? And see if you can find center so that your weight is evenly distributed along the entire footbed. And then from there, we can practice yoga toes, right? Lift and spread the toes. And you start to really spread them out and create a broader platform for you to stand on. Okay. So really anchoring into the earth. And then from there, our knees align over our ankles, our hips align over our knees. As we draw the navel to the spine, we're energetically drawing it back and up. So Uddiyana Bandha is that energetic pulling up of the abdominal area. And that energy travels up through the spine, drawing our shoulders over our hips. And then the ears over the shoulders. So there's a slight tucking of the chin. We're not overdoing it. Just slight. So you're lengthening the back of the neck, Jalandhara Bandha. And here we are in Tadasana. So there's a lot going on in this pose. And as we really brought our attention from the feet up, it enabled us to also now find that more natural extension of the spine. We have a tendency in our culture to really just kind of sink and drop down. And this really brought our awareness. We want to bring this awareness, bring this posture into our poses this morning. Okay. And so from here, we're going to have our blocks out in front of us. If you're using them, you don't have to, right? And for those of you who have really mobile hamstrings, you may not want the block at all, okay? And so from here, we inhale, bring the arms wide and overhead, palms together. Exhale down through center. I'm going to invite you to bend the knees as we come down, keeping the spine really long. So the spine's fully extended all the way to either the block, and you have 3 different levels with the block, or the floor. Okay? And so my intention was to really bring my spine up and over my thighs. My knees are bent. I'm not feeling any stretch for me personally back here right now. That's okay. Yeah, I really wanted to find that long spine. Release the head. And now maybe I'm going to begin to straighten the knees, just kind of bring myself to that first point of a stretch. Start to draw the shoulder blades onto the back body. So they're no longer, shoulders are no longer hanging into the ears. They're active, right? And you just work towards straightening the legs as best you can. Breathing. This is where the block starts to come in handy. So if you do have tighter hamstrings, you can either use the fingertips or the block. And the block really assists us in creating some nice space. And just breathe here. 3 more breaths. Uttanasana, forward fold. Just feel the stretch in the back of the legs if it begins to release just a bit. And we're going to take our hands to our hips, bend the knees quite generously again, as if you're going to sit into a chair. Engage the core, reach forward with the crown of the head so the spine is long, and press down to come up. And just shake that out a little bit. So there's a lot of structure in these very simple poses. So just going to invite you to play with that a little bit here. We're going to come in and out of the pose and really just take your time moving in and out 3 rounds. All right. So I know it seems like real basic stuff, but it's really nice to come back to that beginner's mind and play with our practice a bit here. So on an inhale, the arms reach out and overhead, palms together, and then exhale down through center. Bend the knees on the way down. Fold forward. Maybe the block, maybe not. Okay. Take 2 breaths here, just finding your pose. Play with the shoulders, begin to straighten the knees, engage with the core. Really feel that spine reaching out and over the thighs. Your inhale brings you to standing, hands to hips, bend the knees, engage the core, reach forward with the crown of the head to lengthen the spine as you come back up. All right, so let's go 2 more on your own. You're going to hold in the forward fold for 2 breaths. So we inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold. Just in this modified way. Just feel this in your practice this morning. We'll hold here in Uttanasana 2 breaths. And the inhale brings us up. We'll go 1 more round. And then just feel the posture. In Tadasana again, just feeling the spine, feeling the energy draw up through the feet and lengthen the spine. Okay, so we're going to find a straddle. And again, you may or may not want to use a block. We're going to take our feet out nice and wide. The block is really nice here. But again, really just depending on your flexibility and whether you have one or not available to you. So the feet are parallel. Okay. If I was to bring my arms up shoulder height, I'm going to feel my wrist. If I was to hang a string off my wrist, it would go to my ankles, just approximately. But if that feels too wide for you, bring your feet a little closer together, or maybe you feel more open and you want to bring them wider. Hands to your hips, core engaged. As you take the breath in, feel the spine lengthening. The exhale, maintain that length as we fold at the hip flexor, not the waist. Reach forward with the heart. Keep that slight chin lock. Everything's lengthened. Tailbone reaches behind you. Crown of the head reaches forward. And we'll bring our hands to the block if you're using it, to the floor if you're not. Okay. Now here I'm really lifted. I'm not feeling that much of a stretch in the back of my legs personally, and that's okay. That's not the point here. I'm really just trying to feel into what that experience is in my spine. Really notice what's going on there. Hug the navel to the spine and enjoy the spaciousness or the ease that you might be feeling for those of you who have more range of motion. We have a tendency to always want to take our practice to the deepest level. And sometimes it's nice to take a step or two back. And take 3 more breaths here. Now we'll go ahead and bend the knees just like we did when we were in a standing forward fold. Bring your hands to your hips and press down to come up. So the whole time we really kept the spine long. All right. We're going to do this again. Hands to your hips. The inhale lengthens the spine, engage the core. The exhale, fold at the hip flexor, coming back down into that forward fold. Maybe this time you'd like to remove the block, or you want to lower the block. Either way is fine. But the hands are out in front of us. So we're creating more of a 90-degree bend between and the body becomes parallel with the floor more or less. Okay. So we're going to place the left hand front and center, navel to spine. Keep that engagement of the core. Right hand to your hip, and then roll open to the right. Okay, so feel this twist with an extended spine. So it's really important that as we twist, we're not compressing the discs. And this is a nice way in this pose to come into the twist rather than bringing that left hand all the way to the right foot. This creates a little easier pose, a little gentler. And then if you do want to challenge yourself a little bit more, you can raise the right arm up to the ceiling and shift your gaze all the way up to the right fingertips. But really know how that feels on your neck. Maybe looking straight ahead or even down to the floor feels better. Right? So this is self-care, these choices that we make to honor who's on the mat today. Lower that right arm. Bring it front and center. Remember, you could still be using your block here as well. It's a really nice place to use the block. Left hand to your hip. Find that anterior tip of the pelvis slightly. Keep the core strong and then rotate to the left. And you can let your hips come with you here a bit. Okay? We don't have to keep the hips square. They can follow you into the twist. That eases the sacrum a bit. And then from here, you can keep that left hand on your hip, or you can reach up. You can shift the gaze up, or you can look straight down. All of those are your choices. The breath is not. So keep the breath flowing evenly and smoothly. When you feel that we've held equally on this side, lower that left arm, come back to center. Bend the knees, hands to your hip, and come back up. And we'll heel toe or jump. Bring the feet back together. And then if you're not at the front of your mat, go ahead and come to the front of your mat. And we're going to go ahead, step the right foot back to probably about a 45-degree angle. Left toes are pointing straight ahead. Okay. And from here, even though we've rotated, we've stepped a foot back and rotated, we're still drawing that energy up from the feet. We still have our foundation on the floor in the earth. Bring that energy up, engage the core, spine is long. So we take the inhale, lengthen. With the exhale, we maintain that length. Arms float up shoulder height. So now we're reaching out through the fingertips, more lines of energy here through the arms. Bend into the left knee and rotate your gaze to the left. Warrior two. So just finding it in a different way, more mindfully, taking things slow. How deeply you bend into that front knee is up to you, right? So the deeper you bend, the more challenging the pose is. We also want to make sure that knee stays aligned over the ankle and not out in front of the toes. Spine stays upright, so there is a tendency in this pose to lean into it. So stay upright and steady breath. And then slowly straighten that front leg, release the arms, and step that right foot forward. Back to Tadasana. And we'll step our left foot back. Okay, so finding your stance, left foot back. So we want to notice how far apart we bring our feet, the angle of the back foot. Okay. Spine stays tall. As we bend into the right knee, it's aligned over the ankle. Hugging the core, the inhale, lengthen the spine, allow the arms to float up. Maintain that length on the exhale, maintain the core strength, take your gaze through the right fingertips. Right, so you can narrow the stance of your feet if you don't want to bend the knee as far. If you got everything going on in the shoulders, we can always lower the arms. They might rest right here or even at the heart. That's fine too. And so there's lots of ways to modify so the practice takes care of us. Straighten the front leg, lower the arms, back foot steps forward. And just feel the pose. So warrior two. Warrior poses are definitely about strength. They help us feel grounded. They give us courage or belief in self. So they have a lot going on. Okay, so you may or may not use the block on the next pose. We're going to come into extended triangle pose. I'm going to go ahead and just turn sideways to you. So we're going to step our right foot back again. Now, I always like to share this just for awareness. My stance and triangle pose is just a few inches more narrow between the distance in my feet than my warrior poses. That's just what works for me, but I like to throw it out there for something to play with. And then hands to the hips, keeping the spine long. And one of the things we want to be careful of in triangle pose is the tendency is to fold at the waist, and then the spine kind of compresses. So if the idea is to keep the spine long, it's the hip we're folding into, right? So I'm shifting my hips to find the pose, keeping that side body extended, right? So you can do it with or without the arms. If you want to just play with this here, hands to the hips, shift that right hip back, feel the fold occurring in the hip flexor, and just kind of play with that. How does that feel to you? Notice that and come back up. And then you can come again, try it with the arms. Arms float up, shoulder height. Shift the hips. I'm reaching through my right finger, or left fingertips, excuse me. And then the back of my left hand comes to my shin. For some, it might come to the ankle. It might come to the block. I like the block. Okay. And what we want to notice is that the front body is open. You know, if you were to lie your back body up against a wall, the heart is open. So we're not here. We're not folding forward in order to get farther into the pose. We're really keeping that open. And then the last bit is you can shift your gaze up to the right fingertips. Keep your core engaged, the breath flowing. And with your core, bend the knees slightly if you need to. Reach up through the right fingertips. We'll come up over the arms. And then step back to the front of your mat. Take a few breaths here. Just feel the practice so far. Feel the echo of the practice to the body, the heart, the mind. Turn around here. All right, left foot steps back. Find your stance. Always foundation first. That's going to provide stability and strength for you and ease. So from here, hands to your hips. Play with that same hip motion. So now the left hip is shifting back. I can feel the fold occurring in the right hip flexor instead of my waist. Right hip flexor, right side body stays long. Right, and then kind of come back up. You can feel that. Just notice how that feels for you. Spine long, core engaged. Take a nice deep breath in. Engage the core. On the exhale, we maintain that length. Arms rise, shoulder height. Reach forward with the right fingertips. And bring the back of that right hand to the shin. It might be right by the knee. Might make it to the block. And then we can shift the gaze up to the left fingertips. Heart remains open, lifted. Just notice if your choices are creating a balance between the effort of the pose and the ease. And your breath is one of your best indicators. Begin to lower that left arm, bend into the right knee, use your core, press back up. Lower the arms, back foot steps forward. Take a moment in Tadasana once again to just feel the practice. So let's take this awareness of this extended spine and bring it into our down dog pose. Okay, so Adho Mukha Svanasana. Every now and then I like to cover this because I just think it's an important part of the practice to remember. And down dog is about a long spine. Now that's easy for people to get who have really flexible hamstrings and a little bit more challenging to get for those of us who have tighter hamstrings. So we want to modify that bend in the knees, right? And we're also going to play with that pelvic tilt that we began with, that understanding of that posterior tilt. We're taking the top of the pelvis to the back body, everything tucks under. Anterior tip of the pelvis, we bring the top of the pelvic, the hip bones, forward. So we're dumping the pelvis forward. It's harder for me to get a really strong anterior tip of my pelvis, but you get the idea, okay? So when we come into down dog, we're looking for this anterior tip of the pelvis. Like you're going to take the tailbone up to the ceiling, okay? So from here, let's inhale the arms overhead. Exhale down through center, bend the knees all the way down to your forward fold, and then walk the feet back. Okay, walk your feet back. Feet are hip width apart. Bend the knees pretty generously. If I put my foot sideways here. Okay, so we're bending the knees generously. Take the tailbone high into the sky. Find that anterior tip of the pelvis. And let the heart soften towards the thighs and space between your shoulders and your ears. So we're not hunching the shoulders into the ears. They're away from the ears, broadening the upper back. My knees are bent so much, I don't feel anything in my hamstrings right now. All I'm doing is emphasizing what I'm experiencing in the spine. Take a couple more breaths here. Just feel that so it becomes familiar to you. And then go ahead now, bring the knees back down to the floor. Release into a child's pose. We're going to come up a couple times here playing with this. So releasing back, take a few breaths. Let the arms relax. Maybe even reverse the wrists a little bit if that helps you at all. Let's try this again. So coming up to hands and knees, curl the toes under, keep the knees bent. So it's like someone's taking your tailbone and tied a string to it, and they're going to pull that tailbone up to the ceiling. Heart softens back towards the thighs. Hands are shoulder width apart, shoulders away from the ears, arms are strong. Then from here, once you feel that nice length in your spine, that anterior tip of the pelvis, maintain that, and maybe begin to straighten the legs without losing what you just gained in your spine. So really notice is what happens there. If you start to straighten the legs and the tailbone tucks under and the low back rounds and even the upper back starts to round, bend the knees more, take the tailbone up, come back to the pose in the spine first. Just take a few more breaths here. And then we'll come back down to the knees and into a child's pose. So let's come one more time. Just playing with this one more time. Anchor the hands, shoulder width apart. You might even try just a little bit wider. Bring the pinkies all the way to the outer edge of your mat. Sometimes it's fun to play, and it might create a little bit more ease in the shoulders. Curl the toes under. Lead with the tailbone up to the sky. Find that length in the spine, the softening in the heart, broadening of the shoulders. Then maybe begin to straighten the legs without losing that length. And then release to the knees. And back into a child's one more time. Balasana. Take some deep breaths into the back body. Just feel the echo of the practice. Notice your choices. How is the body responding to the choices you made in your practice today? Find your way up. And we're going to come into a seated position. You may want to use a strap if you have one, but again, it's not necessary. I'm going to open up my blanket. This is a pretty thick blanket, so I'm going to open it up. And sitting off the edge of a blanket for our seated poses can be really helpful in supporting our backs, because it enables us to sit. Typically, when we sit on the floor, we will sink into our low backs. We kind of drop into them. And I'm kind of exaggerating, but not always. This is kind of how we tend to sit in a sofa, the car, wherever we are. It's just, we just sink into that low back. So the blanket, I'm going to take my sits bones right on the edge of the blanket. And then as I sit forward, it just assists a tipping of the pelvis or a lifting in that lumbar spine, and creates a little bit more ease for me to sit for an extended period of time, especially if you have any low back stuff. And then if you do have low back stuff and folding forward is something that's either challenging or completely out of the question, then the strap is, again, really, really useful for that. So if you have a strap, I'm just bending my knees. I'm going to place the strap around the balls of my feet, extend my legs again. And here, this is a wonderful pose, Dandasana, staff pose. I can grab on either end of the strap. I'm pulling like I'm trying to pull my feet towards me, and that pulling helps me to lengthen or lift my heart, lengthen my spine, my core is engaged. And right here, a beautiful pose just to find. Now, if you have really tight hamstrings, sometimes it can be really nice to take your fascia balls or an extra blanket and roll it underneath the knees so the legs are slightly bent. So that's an option I want to throw out there to you if you have that or need that. That can really ease the stretch as well. For those of you who have more mobility, or this is available in your practice today, you can begin to, from that lengthened spine we've been working with, shoulders down and back, core engaged, pull the heart forward. Okay, and we feel more of a stretch, and that may not be necessary. You already feel enough right here. So if we're practicing self-care and nurturance, be aware of the choices you make so that they're in alignment with that. This is not a no pain, no gain concept here. Just hold with the breath flowing in and out. We're moving into Paschimottanasana, or seated forward fold. We're reaching the nose to the toes, not the knees. As we come to the knees, the tendency is to round and let go and collapse in the spine. Spine is extended. This is an active stretch. Slowly come back up and release the strap. Just going to move that off to the side, shake that out a little bit. I'm going to change positions for the camera here. Actually, you know what? We're going to do a single knee twist, so we don't need to use the blanket right now. So we'll just move that off to the side. I'm going to keep my right leg extended, left knee bent, and we can keep the foot to the inner thigh or up and over. Okay. Right elbow around the left knee, left hand behind you. We're going to keep this right leg active, my kneecap straight up to the ceiling, my foot is flexed. I'm going to take my left hip and I'm actually picking it up off the floor and shifting it back. So I'm releasing my sacrum from this twist. It's much easier on the sacrum and low back if you do that. I'm pressing into the left hand. And notice like I have really long arms, so it's really easy for my hand to get into the floor. If it's not, you can use your block, place it behind you, use that as kind of like bring the floor to you. Okay, so that's an option. And then from here, just slowly twist to the left, minimally. Just go a little ways. Just notice how that feels. Continue to let your left hip shift back with you, and then unwind and just see how that felt. Right, so twist, we really want to be careful with twist. Move into them very slowly. And for a lot of people, less is best. So staying more minimal with these is best. The third time you come in, we'll go ahead and hold. We're engaging the core. The spine is lifted, and I'm getting that lift by placing that left hand into the block of the floor, pressing it in, and then slowly unwinding to the left. Heart is open, shoulders down and back, and the gaze shifts out that left shoulder. And then unwind. Release, bring the hips back to square. Shake that out a little bit. And then we'll bend the right knee. Again, now that right foot can be to the inner thigh or up and over. Just depends on your flexibility here. Left elbow around the right knee, right hand behind you into the floor or a block. We're going to take that right hip, shift it back, and then exhale, we move into the twist. The spine is lengthened, core engaged. Move into the twist. Inhale, unwind a bit, face front. Exhale into the twist. And face front. Inhale, and one more time. This time we'll come in and hold. Shoulders stay down and back. Gaze out over that right shoulder. And find your nice, smooth breath. Let's go ahead and unwind. Shake that out a little bit. Okay, one more seated pose, and this time you could use the blanket again if you wanted to, placing it behind you, just sitting right off the edge of it. You can also, you might want to use your block, and you might want to use your fascia balls if you have them. We're going to come into a seated straddle. Okay. So again, those fascia balls are really nice underneath the knees if things feel particularly tight there for you. And as we find our seat, we want to feel a gentle stretch here, but no more. So if you've gone a little bit wider than feels comfortable, just narrow up the legs a little bit, because we're going to start to move forward into this. So if it's already intense here, then you may want to back off. And then again, we can use our blocks. If you have it, you can place that in front. So anchor your sits bones into the earth. Kneecaps stay straight up to the ceiling. The feet are flexed. And again, hands to your hips. We're folding at our hip flexor here. Just to start with, I just want you to play with this just like we did in our triangle pose. So we're not folding at the waist, tucking the tailbone or rounding. We're actually tipping the pelvis forward. That's where the blanket can help too. And start to lean forward, keeping the kneecaps up, heart forward, and maybe it comes to your block. So you can find that position for you. Maybe it's right here is fine. And maybe staying upright and not coming into a forward fold at all is your practice today, and that's fine too. Keep the navel to the spine, just folding into the inner thighs and the groin, and breathe. Slowly bring yourself back upright. Bring the legs together, shake that out a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and come onto our backs again. So find your way there. We're just going to do a few releases and we'll be coming into Shavasana shortly. So notice if you'd like your blanket underneath your head again. Let's go ahead and just kind of unwind the practice coming into our double knee drop. So open the arms wide. Take your feet out as wide as your mat. Your exhale, knees release to one side. Inhale, open up as wide as the knees will allow. And then exhale, release to the other side. And just slowly moving back and forth here. A nice release to the low back, pelvis, inner thighs, sacrum, IT band, hips. It's a very, very minor twist, not much of one. And then we can also add the movement of the head, rotating it side to side in the opposite direction the knees go if you choose. But you can keep it still, just right up to the ceiling, that's fine too. Inhale, open. Exhale into the twist. And you've gone equally side to side. Come back up to our neutral position, knees upright. Draw the knees into the chest. And just take a moment here, Apanasana, knees to chest, knee circles or knees wide. Take about 5 or 6 breaths here. And then we're going to go ahead and find your way into Shavasana. So make any adjustments, place yourself with any props that you need to be comfortable. Extending the legs out along the floor. Then the arms rest somewhere away from your side, palms up, rolling the shoulders back and opening the heart. Notice if the temperature is comfortable for you. You need to put on a sweater or a blanket. I'm going to take you into Shavasana with a bit of a guided meditation and then several minutes of silence. Once you have settled into your pose, take a moment to simply observe your breath. Observe the body breathing. Make any last minute adjustments so that you can be still and peaceful and comfortable. Bring your awareness to something that might be going on for you right now, whether that's something you're struggling with physically or emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And in that challenge, just kind of give the weight of your body to gravity. Just allow yourself to become heavy and surrender to gravity. Allow your weight to sink into the points of contact between your body and the floor. And notice what sensations are there for you right now. And if you notice any tension or resistance towards painful or unpleasant such sensations, I'm going to invite you to gently turn towards them. Just accept them as best that you can. Relaxing into them. If you begin to tense around the breath, then let go a little bit more with each exhale. Softening into gravity. Notice any thoughts as they arise and just let them pass through the mind. See if you can let them come and go without identifying with their content. Simply observe them as if they were clouds in the sky. Notice any feelings or emotions that might arise. Can you let these just come and go? Now include everything within your awareness with a kind and compassionate perspective. Anything that comes up, physical, emotional, mental, just bring them to your awareness and hold them with compassion. Now allow your awareness to gather around the experience of the breath deep in the body. Drop your awareness inside the breath and feel the different sensations in the front, back, and sides of the torso. Can you feel your awareness within the flow and movement of the breath? Use the breath to anchor your awareness in the present moment, breathing into the body, noticing each inhale and exhale again and again. Each time you notice your mind has wandered, gently guide the mind back to the breath deep in the body. Now gently expand your awareness to include the whole body. Feel the weight and shape of the body as it sits, as it lies. If you have any pain or discomfort, make sure your awareness stays open, curious, and compassionate. Cultivate acceptance or acknowledgement for all of your experience. Befriend it. Use the breath to anchor your awareness in the present moment, breathing in the body, noticing each inhale and exhale again and again.
So slowly come back by deepening your breath. You're welcome to create a little movement in the body if you'd like. And you can stay there for a moment or roll to your side. I'm going to share with you a reading by Susan Freiburg. What has happened has already happened. There is no going back. Although you can't travel in reverse to pinpoint the exact beginning and do it all differently, you are neither bound to walk the same old beaten tracks. And you don't have to exhaust yourself in the efforts of making a painful comeback. You don't need to search frantically for just the right setting to emerge anew. For there is an opening that separates you from what was and what will be. It is an offering given to you by each present moment called now. Now is when and where the inception of your authentic awakening can begin. Now is where your confused and frightened self can rise to walk with measured strides. Now is when you can take a step up higher in your thinking as you opening to seeing your surroundings with a much clearer and deepening lens. You can do better now, because now is the genius of your transformation, the apex where all the truthful places in you shine brighter than ever before and continue to expand within you even more, starting right now. If you haven't already, go ahead and roll to one side. After a few breaths there, find your way to seated. Check in, just notice who's here now, what may have shifted within your layers from the beginning of the practice until now. Bring your palms together at your heart to Anjali Mudra. Honor this time you gave yourself today. May you be at peace. May your hearts remain open. May you awaken to the light of your own true nature. May you be healed. And may you be a source of healing for all beings on the planet. Thank you for allowing me to take the seat of teacher. Namaste.